profit think tank offering a global network for select business, government, and academic leaders worldwide to share and disseminate innovative ideas and solutions for today's competitive world. He is also an internationally recognized business and technology expert, a speaker, and author with over 25 years of information systems management, marketing, and business development experience in such industries as retail, healthcare, financial services, and information technologies. And apart from that, Jack teaches at UC Berkeley. He teaches the development of global strategy. Please welcome our speaker.
Thank you, and welcome. The way I'm going to do this, I'm going to explain a little bit first about my background so you understand where I'm coming from. Number two, I'm going to take you through what I know about the educational process in the United States right now, from being an instructor at University of California, Berkeley, and some of the research that I've been doing on my new book. Then I'm going to take you through a presentation on how to build strategy, product development from a Silicon Valley perspective, because I've been working in Silicon Valley for quite a while. And then finally, the last part, what I'm going to do is to begin the process of helping you refine your strategy that you're going to be doing over the next week. And we're going to take a look at that from a high-tech standpoint versus a traditional educational standpoint. Okay? So a little bit about my background, just so you know where I'm coming from. I'm the president of the Global Strategic Research Institute, and what that is we work with businesses worldwide to develop strategies and implementation plans for them to enter different markets around the world. I also, in my own business, which is Novus Globe, I'm what's called a forensic marketing person. In other words, investment banking people will hire me to come into distressed companies and to help them figure out ways that they can go to market or they can find value back into their companies. So I do a lot of that type of work. And then finally, I teach at a special program at the University of California, Berkeley, that concentrates on foreign executives who come into the United States who want to learn how to compete using the U.S. model. And so I teach competitiveness on the international scale, international business, and global marketing. And the students, these executives that come over are from about 40 different countries. A lot of them from Asia, a lot of them we have from Russia, from Turkey, and so forth. And that's my background, okay? So we're going to start off in a marketing perspective here. And everything we're going to talk about, I'm going to put it into a marketing framework, okay? The insight and knowledge that has a broad span will help you in what you're doing. And by the way, you can have these slides. So you don't have to just listen, and you can have the slides later. And what happened to one of my executives that came over at Berkeley one time, he came up to me and said, I'm having a real difficulty here. And I said, why? He said, first of all, there's too much noise in the Bay Area. There's traffic, there's too much noise. And he's from the eastern side of Turkey. And he didn't know how to handle that. It was just too much noise in Berkeley and San Francisco. There's a lot of dynamics going on. He, unlike yourselves, did not go to the Pacific Ocean to take a swim, but that's okay. On the other hand, what he did say to me is in America, there's too many choices. If you go to a food or a grocery store in the United States, right down the street, the larger ones will have over 125,000 different items, SKUs. Just in soup alone, tomato soup, you may have 23 varieties to choose from. So how do you make these types of choices when you have so many to choose from? How do you determine what is the choice that you want? So students who go to universities have choices to make. Businesses have choices to make. Everyone has to make a choice. They're your customers, and you have to figure out their needs and what they're looking for. And when you look at the 21st century, it's about totally competing differently from others that are in the market. doing what your rivals can't do or don't want to do or don't even understand what they need to do. And what's bringing this about is this whole area of globalization, high-speed communications, computers, greater productivity for individuals, better and speedier transportation methods right now, modern infrastructure that you see here in the workforce, and a better educated workforce, more knowledgeable because they have more choices worldwide. They can take courses online, offline, in seminars. There's so many different ways of doing this. So what I'm trying to build for you now is what I'm going to call a conceptualization, the ability to see how elements, different elements of an abstract, okay, how they fit together and identify the problem or the opportunity to be addressed before anybody else can do that. Because you're competing as a university with hundreds of other universities around the world. You're competing with the one school I teach at the University of California, Berkeley. But Berkeley is competing with Stanford. I've done work with MIT and a bunch of other universities, and what we're finding is the competition is very fierce for this type of talent. On the other hand, this talent, companies want talent out there, and there's a fierce battle for the students who are leaving the university for the talent and knowledge that they have. So all this is playing a major role right now. Many in the United States, and you're going to find out through your conversation, believe that within 20 years, 50% of the colleges and universities in the United States will no longer exist because there will be new methods of education that will replace the traditional university. And what's going to happen, you're going to have this total disruption in the university sector, in the educational sector, that's going to go along with the business sector. What the 21st century education requires is creating new curriculum, reframing that curriculum to prepare your students for a modern world and to help the continuity of the traditional institution that you're working with. How do you do that? Well, the biggest deficit that you and other universities are facing is the lack of insight in managing this complexity. You don't know who your competition is and what they're doing. And if you do that, you need to stay one step ahead of them. It's just like a company, Google, down the road. They have to consistently innovate and to be able to develop new products and services to do that. It was Peter Drucker, the management guru who taught at UCLA, who said there's only two things that matter in business. One is marketing, the other is innovation. So how are you going to market your institution, and how are you going to innovate that's going to be more competitive than anybody else? And what I mean by that is the traditional institutions of higher education are very siloed. You have people who teach finance, you have people who teach engineering, you have all these different silos. And what's not happening is the world is asking it to become, as it's being more complex, is to go across these silos and have interdisciplinary areas that bring engineering, IT, medicine, finance all together to help make these decisions. It's like Google across the street or Oracle in those buildings that we're seeing over here. That's what they're doing in business. That's what should be done in education right now. So we want to go beyond this siloed approach and have cross-disciplinary institutions that are not solely into these functional roles, but to have each of the departments have different responsibilities. Let me give you an example. There's a gentleman by the name of Li Kai-sheng. Does anybody know Li Kai-sheng? Li Kai-sheng is probably one of the wealthiest men in China. Okay, he owns multiple large businesses around the world. He also established Guangdong University, which is a joint research part with the Technion in Israel. And what they're doing is sending their professors that when it opens in 2017 over to Tel Aviv or to Haifa and bringing him back, because what's happening now is universities around the world are beginning to work with each other. And the Technion and Li Kai-sheng is a good example, but the Technion also works with Cornell in New York, MIT, and University of Michigan on joint research projects and so forth. So all these universities are working together, not just sending students over, but they're doing collaborative work. And part of this whole process is interdisciplinary. It's just not students going over and taking finance or engineering. It's bringing these multidisciplines together to find solutions to problems. And what I've seen from my courses at Berkeley is that the students that are coming, these executives, don't want just memorization. They want to work individually and in groups together on real problems. Their biggest complaint to me is the case study method that's used at Harvard and other universities is outdated. By the time you get this information, it's 3 years old, and the world is changing faster. They have to make decisions faster to be able to do that. Then the question that they also have is, if we do that, how are we going to operate as students together? What form of education do we need to be able to do this? The former Treasury Secretary to the United States, Larry Summers, who teaches at Harvard, said the most popular course right now at Harvard University is computer science, coding. We're going back to the days of IT and coding. It's becoming extremely popular again. That's the skill that most students want. This is from Harvard, that's usually a pro-business school, and it's not MIT. So they want coding in that process. And that's where the students' careers are most focused right now. And of course, what's happening is you have online courses like Coursera and Education X and so forth that are coming along. There's all these different methods of education. All the courses, by the way, at MIT are free. I can take any course at MIT online right now for free. I don't get graded on it, but I get the same material. You can do that at Berkeley and some of the courses. Different places around the world have different courses, and a lot of this information is free. So how are you going to differ and make yourself different? And the other thing that's becoming very popular, by the way, is that professors at certain universities, like Porter or Christensen at Harvard, are becoming rock stars. People want to hear them and see them. They're the model that people live up to, okay? And you see them at Stanford or Berkeley. There's certain professors in certain disciplines that people want to hear and want to study under. So the question is, if these people are becoming rock stars, how are the universities going to handle that in this process? It's a whole different dynamic that's going on right now. And we're finding it more and more, because where Porter used to put his 5 principles together and everything else that he was doing, he can go online and speak to millions of people online now and give his course. So what is more important, going to Harvard or listening to Porter? Who's the one with the knowledge, okay? So how important is it to know that? And then the question then becomes also, is the university that important? You go down the street to Facebook. Zuckerberg did not finish Harvard. The founder of Microsoft did not finish Harvard. A lot of these people did not finish the courses the universities started, and they created massive businesses over here. So what I'm trying to say is, the way you look at the problem is a little different than the traditional university way. Think of yourselves, while you're here for this week, as being Steve Jobs. Everybody know who Steve Jobs is? He created Apple. Think about how he did that. He took a course at a university here, so, down the road, just one course in design, and that whole changed his life. It wasn't what he was studying, but he wanted to learn a little bit about design. He took a course, and from that, redesigned the phone, redesigned the computer, redesigned a lot of things that made a business grow. Not only did he take that, his thought process, but he also created companies like Pixar Entertainment and others that are multi-million-dollar industries, because he began to think differently, and also to go cross-disciplinary functions to what he knew. So this is what I want you to think about over the next week. because this is what we do in Silicon Valley, okay? So before I go, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the CEO's perspective now. I talked about the universities, so what are CEOs looking for? IBM studied 1,500 CEOs, and CEOs around the world are seeing growth in complexity, businesses getting harder, and they feel that they're not prepared. Fewer than 1/2 of those 1,500 CEOs feel that they're prepared to handle what's going on a global basis. And most of these have graduated from major universities. The Gallup poll and Lumenia Foundation interviewed CEOs, and they found this: 11% of business leaders strongly agree that today's graduates have the skills and competencies that their business needs. Only 11% have the competency that those businesses need. 96%, they found out, of college and university chief academics, that's you, offers that they were extremely and somewhat confident in their institution's ability to prepare students for the workforce. So 96% believe of the university faculty, administrators, believe they had the ability to give the workforce what they need, yet 11% of the business leaders did not. 88% of the business leaders would like to have more collaboration in working with the schools. It's not being done. They're not surveying the leaders. They're not surveying the students when they get out. Did it mean anything? Is the student valuable? Is what they're learning valuable, and so forth? And 89% of these leaders believe that higher education needs to change to meet the skills that are needed in society. So what is it that these executives are looking for? They are setting expectations to what people buy, how they buy, and what they buy. It's the expectation that counts, not necessarily the thing. It's people's expectations of this. So, what are they saying? They need people with highly specialized skills, strategic intelligence, high abstract reasoning, and interpersonal skills. They need to have relevant school experience to the problems that students are going to face when they get out into the world. And what they're finding out, at least in the United States, that traditional MBAs, the core curriculum, no longer reflects business reality. That's what they're saying. They have literate students, but students are not inclined to inquire. And we need students that can inquire. So innovation occurs at the intersection of different perspectives and opportunities for these new ideas. That's why you're here, okay? And to have different points of view brings on meritocracy, and the same breeds mediocrity. So that's the leaders of the companies, educational institutions. Now let's talk about what students need. What students are facing, at least in Silicon Valley, is disruptive competition. Businesses are moving very fast. They're here today, they sell out, they move really fast, they have to make decisions. There's a geographical shift in opportunities. We can hire people from around the world here. We're looking for the best there is. The question that you're going to find out from Google when you go there next is, how do you find talent? How do I find talent in Kazakhstan? Okay? How do I find talent in Germany? How do I find talent in Brazil? I'm a global company. I can go anywhere in the world. How am I going to know that the students that are coming out of your university are the best that we have? And how do I bring them into my business? How do I do it in Silicon Valley? Okay. And what kind of skills they have? I mentioned that before, but you're seeing flatter organizations with less people, more talent differentiation from around the world. You're seeing new leadership styles. The traditional leader that we're accustomed to has changed. And what we're beginning to see is a balance between Western leaders and Eastern leaders coming together in their thought process of how they're going to manage. Most of the universities in the United States teach the Western style. And what we're finding out, it doesn't always work. So you're going to see this blending as more countries from the East come aboard. China, Japan, Korea, the totally different styles and the blending of those styles. So how does a company in today's environment manage this global perspective? Because in order to succeed, they have to be global. And how are they going to manage their talent? From a strategic perspective and to have a global outlook, but most of them don't. And how do we get past this commodity education that everyone is getting, and how are we going to differentiate ourselves? And then the next part is, what do we do to take this complex reasoning skills that people need and develop those complex skills? How are we going to get people to think critically? How about the different types of aspects of the problems they're going to face? This is what we're facing. That's the beginning. So how do we solve this problem? Well, the way you solve the problem is to look at it from a different perspective. A product, a program that you have within your university will win a battle. If I can offer the best course in innovation, I can win a battle, but I'm not here to win the battle. I want to win the war. So what kind of model am I going to set up to be able to win and get my students or students coming to enroll in my courses, but also to take these students and to get them out into the world to make a difference? Isn't that the plan of the president of Kazakhstan when he produced the 2020 report? He wanted to change Kazakhstan, correct? That was his whole methodology. So how do you do that if you're thinking in the traditional mode? You really have to say, this is important, but we're going to change this. And this is why you're here, because you're developing a strategic plan to be able to do that. And what you're going to see over the next week is a whole different way of people looking at the problem, at least in the United States, at least in Silicon Valley. So what you have is a global view, and I want you to take a global view. That's why you're here. You have all this market dynamics that are going on. You have competition in universities, competition in business, individuals trying to figure out what kind of career they want, all those different types of things. You have the customer requirements. Who's your customer? Well, you have a student as a customer. You have the business as a customer. You have the administration as a customer. You have the government as a customer. You have a lot of different viewpoints coming into this process, and then you have to set up your organization to be able to provide for those. And that's what you're really doing. So when you look at it, so the 6 principles that you're going to do to create value. What is value? Value is what you determine it to be. There's a traditional method in marketing that says value is equal to the benefits over price and money, and that's your traditional course book. I'm saying value is what you believe it is, what your students are going to believe it is, and by the way, a lot of times they don't know that, what it is, and what the business community is, what they believe it to be. So value, and it's not the price of the institution, how much they pay to go. It's the real key is the value. The customer, whoever that is going to perceive the value. Is education at Harvard any different than it is at Cal over here? Not really, but there's difference in Harvard is that people believe 2 things about Harvard. One is that I'm going to meet a lot of people at Harvard who are going to help me in my career. The professors are knowledgeable, and I'm going to get this information. And the second part of Harvard is I'm going to be able to network with a lot of people who can help me in my career afterwards. Other than that, the difference is in education may not be, actually Cal may be better, or MIT may be better. Could be a lot of different ways of looking at it. It's not what you sell. It's how you sell it, what kind of information you're putting out, the message that your university is giving to the world. Think about what is the message that Stanford gives to the world. What do you think about when I say Stanford University? That's what you need to think about. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when I say Harvard? or the London School of Economics, or Oxford. Now I'm going to take you down on what happens if I say San Jose Community College. See, there's a difference. It's all the perceived. When I say Mark Zuckerberg, what do you think? What comes to your mind? Versus Eric Lee. You don't even know who that is. That type of thing. So you see what I'm saying? It's that perceived value. And value has to be really focused. So when you look at what's coming out of Stanford, you're getting the leaders of all these high-tech industries that are coming out of Stanford. Are they coming out necessarily out of Harvard? Well, not really. They're getting people, but Harvard's beginning to change. The presidents of banking institutions and so forth, traditional business, has been out of Harvard. But when it comes to high tech, it's been MIT, it's been Stanford and other types of schools. So there's a whole different way. So it depends on what career you want and what field you want, you go to certain institutions. Let me give you an example. International business, that's the area that I teach. There are only 5 schools in the United States that have a doctor in business administration specifically geared to international business. And the top one in the United States is the University of Virginia, followed by Arizona State University, which used to be Thunderbird. They bought the Thunderbird Institute. But most of the MBA programs, including Harvard, including MIT, including others, even Oxford University, and even the London School of Economics, do not necessarily focus on international business, international marketing. If I were to tell you that there are only 10 books on international business produced in the United States by McGraw-Hill, Pearson, or any other publisher, that's the total number. That's how the market has not kept up with that. And when you really go into global segment marketing, as an example, there's only one book available from one professor that's covered that. And how many global businesses need to know about segment marketing for specific countries to bring their product into that market? And nobody's teaching that course. Okay? And there are other courses like that people are missing out, so there's an opportunity there. You can do that and bring it together. So value is very focused. The market positions you. There are hundreds of universities out there, so the market for you is whatever you're going to create. That's your strategic plan. The implementation of it is the development of these different types of programs that you're going to do. So applying the 5 basic C's of marketing that I know you know is you need to understand who your customer is. So who is that customer? Who is the youth that you're going after, the young person? And do they really know what they want? Or do businesses, can they tell you what they want? Not necessarily. You have to be the Steve Jobs of the world and try to figure out what you're going to bring to market that's going to be different. That's your differentiator. That's your value to be able to do that. Do you need help in doing that? Yes. Steve Jobs did not do it alone, but he put it together. What is your company or your institution's special competence? What are you going to do that's better than anybody else? It could be in petroleum, because you have petroleum, you have commodity resources, minerals, and so forth in Kazakhstan. You also have the space program in Kazakhstan. You have a lot of specialties that you can leverage. Is that what you want to be known for, that engineering to be able to do that? Or do you want to be like everybody else in this process? What do you want to do? Your competition is every university right now in the world. Okay, because I looked at your university. I looked at the curriculum that you had on your website. I analyzed what you had, and I didn't see anything very unique about it, at least the website. And I started looking at your strategic plan on the website, but unfortunately my Russian isn't that good. So I wasn't able to delve into it. Okay. My associate at the Global Strategic Institute speaks fluent Russian and so forth, and she started to translate a lot of this for me, but she's been in Moscow, and she's taught in Moscow and so forth. So who are your collaborators? Who can you collaborate? Well, you can collaborate with different universities. You can collaborate with Berkeley or Stanford or the Technion in Israel or in China or MIT. There's all kinds of collaborators, but there's also companies that you can collaborate with that are looking to this. And there's also consultants that you can collaborate to get information that you may not see. And since you're not located here in the heart of Silicon Valley, you have organizations like the center here that you can collaborate with to do a lot of this stuff. And then again, the final part is, what is the context, the legal aspect of it, the technical aspect. How do I get this information? How do I participate with you in whatever you're going to develop? So I want for you to establish your strategic plan for the long term and to provide value to your customers. So the first thing you do is look at the product. Your product is your coursework, but it could be more than that. It could be joint research. It could be an innovation lab that you're doing as part of the university to bring new technologies from the mining area and the petroleum area together and using your area as a bootstrap way of getting companies out of Kazakhstan into the world. A lot of universities do that. There's a lot of things you can do to get people interested in what you're trying to do. So again, solving the critical problem of your customer. So it's not just the student that's your customer. It could be the businesses in Kazakhstan. It could be the government. It could be the government working with other governments. It could be that Google wants to set up a research facility in Kazakhstan. How are they going to do that? What is Google interested in that Kazakhstan and your university can offer them? What do you have that they could look at? Well, wait a minute. Isn't not the gentleman from Google, but there's the guy who's doing the SpaceX, and I can't think of his name offhand. Right. Wow, if you already have the space platform in Kazakhstan, maybe you should be approaching his company, SpaceX. That's also the Tesla car. He started that, and maybe working with them to be able to put something together. Maybe that would, and if you did that, you're going to draw more students. Now you have the collaboration. All these pieces begin to fit together. It's that collaborative, different way of looking at it. Then you but by doing that, you have to tell him how he can benefit. Again, he's your customer. How he can benefit by working with you. It's not the other way around. Remember, he's the customer. He needs to know what you can do for him, not what he can do for you. That's part of the negotiation that you're going to have. But how does he benefit? So you need to know what he's doing. And I just gave you an idea. He's looking at space programs. He's using the United States to send up his rockets right now, but you probably are already doing research into the space program and other things that are going on. So all I am saying is help him to help you by understanding what he needs. Or when you're going to Google after today, how many of you actually looked at the strategic plan of Google and where they're going? Did anybody take the time to look at the strategic plan of Google? And if you didn't, you just lost an opportunity. Because Google on their websites tells you their strategy. When I worked for Cisco Systems, I did mergers and acquisitions for Cisco. I'd have companies come to me and say, I have this great product, wonderful product. I want you to buy our company. And I said to them, but it doesn't fit into our strategy. Well, what is your strategy? Our strategy's on our website. Ask me what our strategy. I can break it down into the different groupings, and I could tell you if your product fits. And he said to me, well, we didn't do that. Then you didn't prepare yourself. You didn't spend the time. Okay? And I look at companies that come into Silicon Valley, startups from around the world that I work with, and it's the same thing. Oh, I want to go to Cisco. I want to go to Google. I want to go to Microsoft. Do they need your product? How do you fit into what they're doing? How do you make your case that you're different and that you can bring more return for their investment by going to you? Most companies don't. That's why 95% of all the companies that are starting up fail. 95% of all companies fail when they come here. And that's even American companies, but global companies that come to the Valley from wherever in the world they're coming from, most of them fail. because they don't know what's going on. They don't know how to look at the company's strategy. They don't know how to present themselves to the company. And that's what I'm trying to help you with today. And then you offer small individualized value packages. I'm a small individualized value package, I hope, for you. And we're offering that to you. Okay? The offer I made to Marina after she asked me to come and speak to you, I said, okay, you're going to spend the next week going around talking to different universities. You're going to have questions developing your plan. Well, in the next few days, as you have questions, I'm going to give you my card. Contact me. I'll be more to guide you. I'll come back in on Tuesday of next week and spend for free some time guiding you along. And then we'll talk on Friday about the final. That's the individualized way to do it. It's not necessarily making money, but it's giving you a service that's going to hopefully help you. Okay. So the value proposition that you're creating in your strategic plan is you may have who's your target customer or target customers. You may have more depending on the type of program you're putting together. So a finance program could be a little different than an engineering program at the university, but you're going to be able to set that up. What the specific benefits do you provide? Just don't tell me it's an education. What are the real benefits that if a student comes to your university, what are they going to walk away with other than a piece of paper that said they graduated? What are you going to give them? You can't guarantee them that they're necessarily going to give them a job, but you could really prepare them so when they go out that they have those skills that businesses are asking for, and then they're going to be in a better position. And most universities don't do that. And what price, you can work that out. That's up to you. Why is your value proposition superior? Well, if you concentrate, let's say, on mineral and mining or the space program or something of that sort, and I'm just giving those as examples, now you have a real specific. What's the #1 university in the United States for mining? It's the Colorado School of Mines. It's the #1 university. No? Yes? In the United States. United States. Colorado School of Mines. If you want to go into mining and so forth, you go to the Colorado School of Mines. You don't go to Stanford, okay? It's very specialized in what they're offering. You know, can you demonstrate a sufficient demand for the program that you're in? If you're looking at a lot of the universities here, they have a lot of courses that the students that created, but there's no demand for them. Women's studies, even though it's maybe important, it's not going to get that person a job when they leave the university. Again, how are you going to compete against your competitors? How are you going to change your current business model? Since you've been in business since 1999, that's when you separated and became a standalone university, okay, how are you competing right now? If you're not getting state funds, what is that business model? How are you going to change your model? Do you want to be self-sufficient in the enrollment that you get? Do you want to do partially online? Do you want to do it offline? How do you want to make the revenue streams? All of these questions you need to begin to ask. Because now you're competing, remember, with MIT. Almost every course at MIT is free. How do you do that? How are you going to make your revenue? How are you going to make your money? Okay? Becomes critical. Have you considered alternatives? And those are other alternative programs. Look at the program you're in right now here. Should you not have something like this at your university? How to work with and enter and invest in companies and so forth, and bring the technology that's being developed at your university into programs that you can spin out into the world and create separate companies. And I give that as an example because at the Technion in Haifa, Israel, almost all, it's like 80% of all the startups that go public in Israel are coming out of the Technion University. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? One university, you have a bunch of them in Israel, one university is producing spin-out companies that are actually making a difference to other companies worldwide. And what they're taking those companies, coming into the American market right now, and they're selling their technology to every company here. You should be doing the same. And can your message, whatever it is, be explained very simply and easily so people can understand that value? So when you really look from a product development standpoint, this is a Silicon Valley model. What really happens is here's this customer value. Remember we said it, whatever the customer wants. Most products that are developed here in Silicon Valley and other places, startup companies, fail after a short period of time. And the reason why they fail is if you look over here, number one, these are not necessarily customer focused. The ones that are customer focused become better, but if you have the customer focus, but you're saying it in the same language as the customer and the same tools that a customer would use, this is your business area, it brings you the opportunity of being more successful. And if the companies and so forth are in that value creation process with you as a joint partnership, your chances of succeeding are higher than anybody else's. Now you can compete, because very few others are doing that. What they do over here, before I do that, I'm going to go back one step for a minute. I show this slide because I want you to put your university's logo up here with everybody else's university logo, and the question is, if I'm a shopper, like I go to a grocery store, why should I buy your product? And people buy it because of recommendations or because of labeling or because it looks good. There's a lot of different reasons why people will buy in a consumer goods store, a Safeway or a grocery store or any other type of clothing store. When you look at all these are real wineries around the Bay Area and other parts of the country. There's a bottle of wine on there, a label for the most expensive bottle of wine. It's $6,000 per bottle. Can anybody identify it? If you're in the wine business and you know wine, you're going to be able to identify which of those labels is the most expensive bottle of wine. But yet, you see all these cool labels. You get a picture of Marilyn Monroe, the actress over here, and so forth. People buy Marilyn Monroe. You're shaking your head, yes, but I'm going to go, no. If you were to have your wife or your girlfriend come over, do you want to have a bottle of wine with a picture of another woman on it? No, right? You want to have something else on there. So your nice romantic dinner and they're seeing Marilyn Monroe, or do you want to have this nice romantic dinner and have a monkey on the bottle? You don't want that either, right? Which one is it over here when you look at all these different labels? And by the way, this is the image that you're portraying. This is why the image, the marketing material, the information that you're putting out, your messaging and so forth becomes really critical. The most expensive bottle of wine over here is Screaming Eagle. It's very narrow in its production. The guy who manufactures it, the winemaker, is very well known, and he only puts it in limited supply so he can charge a lot of money for it. Sounds like Harvard University, doesn't it? You charge a lot of money. What do you get the image and the name and so forth. So when you go, if you're a graduate from Harvard and you go out into the market, what is the employer buying? Well, the first thing they're going to see is Harvard University, right? Or Stanford. And the next thing they're going to do is they're going to go, okay, I'll hire you, but now you have to perform. And if you don't perform, they're going to go, I may have made a mistake by hiring somebody from Harvard. You know, it's the worth that you're going to bring in afterwards. So is that a good bottle of wine? Actually, it is. I've had it once. I can't afford $6,000 for a bottle of wine, but it's really good. So that's what I talk about with your brand. So what is the brand that you want to portray for your university? So what do companies want in their markets? When a company is establishing itself into a foreign market, and I bring this up to show you what companies are looking for in a market, but it doesn't always apply to you, but they're looking for one thing. They want a workforce who can think and can be trained to their methodology. That means you have to have flexibility in education to be able to do that and to provide them the skills that they need. They have to have diversified technology talent. They need to know how to code, but that's only one part of it. They need to know how things are put together from different disciplines, how it works. Because if a medical device company is coming out, You need to know about medicine, but you also need to know the technology. You also need to know how to manufacture. You need to know the different pieces of putting that product together or that education together, and that's not what's being provided. Of course, a cooperative government, you are developing a modern educational system, it becomes critical. A lot of the educational systems right now are outdated around the world, and they're trying to modernize. This becomes critical. Trying to continually update and do new things in the process over here. And of course, they want a vibrant community. What makes the Bay Area and Silicon Valley unique is because we have people here from everywhere around the world. And we can sit and we can talk, we can argue, we can discuss, we can bring new ideas to the table. It makes no difference of your religion, your background, any of that. They're all here to create. And that's the unique thing about being in Silicon Valley. So, what management is looking for? Valuable, useful, applicable advice and solutions beyond what they already know. What they want from students and others when they hire them is something that they don't know. So if I'm looking from a student who just graduated Stanford, I as a manager of a business may not know how to use certain amount of the newer tools that are coming out onto the market, but I'm going to hire people who could do that, who can think about how that applies to my company, and to be able to set this whole process for me to make money. The goal is still to make money. I'm looking for people who have knowledge and insight to what the markets are doing globally. So they hire people. When I was at Berkeley, they hire people from different countries because they don't have the knowledge of that country. But they're looking for specifics. How do I enter that country? How do I do business in the country? What's the tax structure in that country? All the disciplines you have, but now it goes horizontal versus the vertical siloed part of the industry. They want to know before something else happens what's occurring in the market. They want people to be aware that this is going to be the new release from Google, and if I'm Microsoft, I need to know what's going to happen. It's going to change the nature of my business, and understands the pattern of events. What's happening in the world, especially in technology. And I'm using this from a technology standpoint, but it applies across all the disciplines, and applies across if you're into government work and so forth. It still applies because governments are competing with each other for top talent. So this market that we're in right now, Silicon Valley, that differs from a lot of others, it's highly dynamic, it changes constantly, it's very complex. All these different pieces have to come together of how do you do business in India, and how do you do business in Kazakhstan, and all the relations of the tax laws in China, and can I manufacture here, and what happens if the supply chain I'm working with falls apart and the docks are closed and I can't bring in food from Chile. What happens in these markets, and the risk that's involved. All that applies. And as a result, they're fast moving. It's expensive to play here in the market. Okay, the competition is very, very intense. That you have to be aware of. You're playing against other people around the world. You're playing against people from India who are getting an education and are knowledgeable, and they're coming here and setting up companies because they have this hunger to set up a company. They've seen the situation in their own country, and they have the opportunity of coming here to do it. And they are consumer rather than product orientated. That's some of the difference that's going on in this market. So product developers, program developers as yourself, must anticipate those consumer needs and do something before somebody else does. If you're following somebody else, you're not leading. You need to be unique and to be able to lead. And you need to be aware of what's going on, and that's why you're here. So you need to really look at the market and do an assessment. So who are your potential customers? You can read these for yourself. How do they purchase their education around the world? Those are the questions you should ask for the universities. How do I get to these students to come to Stanford or Berkeley? And how do they find out about me? Is it just reputation, and what do they pay, and how do I look at my cost per student, and those types of things? What business models do they look at? Not their strategy necessarily, but their business model, how they operate the company from a financial standpoint. what channels do they use? What I mean by channels is how do they get the students in? How do they get them out? The channels that are bringing them in to feed the educational institution or the business, and what happens when they leave. Because here in the Valley, it's a small community. If I worked for Sun Microsystems at one time, I went to Cisco. They hired me away for more money, but it's a small community. People know each other. That networking really makes a difference. And if you can network with people around the world, it's even more important. Because at Sun and Cisco, I have friends and colleagues that I can call anywhere in the world. You know, I can pick up the phone and call Korea. I can call India. I have resources available to me anywhere in the world. The real thing is your competition. Because if they don't go to your school, they're going to find someplace else to go. Right? They're already doing that. Okay, if I can't get to Berkeley, if I can't get to Stanford, I'm going to go someplace else. I'm going to go to the whatever top school that I believe is going to be important for me. And what are my expectations as a student? Well, a lot of them go to school like Berkeley and Stanford for the name. If they get in, they feel comfortable that the name will get them the job. That's part of what they're looking at. The problem is it may get them in the door for the job. It may not hold the job for them. If they can't perform, they're going to be out after a while. And the reputation of the school goes down. So what you're doing as part of your plan, your strategic plan, is to develop really a marketing plan. Your segment that you're looking at, your positioning in the market, all of these become your competitive advantage that you're going to have over other people, how you're going to sell what you're doing, okay, how you're going to advertise. All of this is what companies do. And it's the same thing with what institutions do. You're doing the same type of work. So what strategy should you be putting together? Well, it depends on your vision, where you want to be, your institution. Do you agree upon that? Your attitude towards risk, because if you're going to do a partnership, let's say with Stanford University, you're going to take on risk. Because if you can't perform to their qualifications, they're not going to work with you. Or Berkeley, or whoever you want to do. So there's risk involved. Okay. If you ask most of the people in this area of the world where Kazakhstan is, they would probably go, what? They don't know. Okay. So, I'm sorry to say it, but they don't. Okay. We're ignorant. Americans are very ignorant about the geography of the world. But people are going to go. There's opportunity there. You're here because you're looking for that opportunity to work with others, but you have something to offer. At least that you believe you have something to offer. Okay? What I mean by investment capital, if you're going to work with other companies, if you're going to work with Google, if you're going to work with the educational institutions here, it's going to cost something. Do you have the capital to sustain that for a period of time as you're setting up operations with Berkeley or Stanford or MIT or Google or Cisco or any of these organizations? Do you have that ability to do that? And how much control do you want over what they're going to say? Because, again, if no one knows your university and you're trying to get a program with Stanford, Stanford's going to tell you, because they're the known brand and they're in the top 10, they're going to tell you what they want, their strategy, and you're going to have to say, can you fulfill that or not? They're the primary customer. Think of it selling your startup. You're trying to sell into a Google or to a Cisco. Who's going to control the conversation? It's going to be Cisco or Sun or Oracle, any of the guys who have the big money. And it applies the same thing with the university, because they're not going to destroy their brand because of you. Okay? And if you don't perform, they're going to get rid of you. It's that simple. Nature of business. So, you started your business plan. I deal with a lot of companies, both startups and other companies that work on business plans. And what I've seen over time, your value proposition starts out by the number of times you do this, okay? Think about teaching in a class. Every time you teach in a class, you get better at it, right? Constantly get improving and improving. You're getting feedback from your students. You're constantly getting better and better and better. By the time you do 15 classes or more, you know that material backwards and forward. You know every question that every student's going to ask, right? Pretty much. 80% or 90% of them are going to ask you the same questions. That 10% is what you're really looking for. It's the same thing in your business and strategy plan. After so many times you're doing it, you've gotten it down. So now you're in your fact-finding tour here. You're going to modify your strategy. You're going to put a development plan in this process over here. But you're going to say, now that you've heard some of my stuff and you're going to see Google this afternoon and so forth, this may or may not work. This will work, you know, and might work, and you're going to test these things out. But you have to ask people very focused, very specific questions. Okay? If you're too general, they're going to say, oh, yes, that'll work, and they don't really mean it. That's how people are here. And then finally is you're going to find a solution that works. Think of it as publishing a book. Most of you have published. The first time you wrote the thing, it was an outline, and then you corrected it, and then you recorrected it, and you recorrected it again, and you re-edited it, and then finally you get it right. Okay? It's the same process with your business plan. But the business plan is not that important. It's the mental process that all of you are used to because you've done papers and so forth of going through that process more so than the plan. It's the mental process to think through the different hundreds of options that are out there and to find the return on the options that are best for you and your university. That's all you're really looking for. Nothing new in that, but most companies, by the way, do it the fast way. They do 3 or 4 of them, and then they take it to a VC, and they wonder why they don't get money, because they haven't thought it through. And the VC asks questions, and then they go back and say, okay, I got to redo this. Well, before you go to the VC, you should have all these things thought out, and all your research done, and all the preparation done. And that's what you're really doing here. It's your fact-finding to be able to do that. So the long-term customer needs, you can see this, what is unique about your product, what's your real value proposition for the university, who are your customers, why is it worth the requested price, whatever you're assuming to charge for the work you're doing. The other thing that's kind of unique here, we think a lot of terms about the Hollywood methodology and how Hollywood works. And it's a whole new trend that's happening over here where you're seeing faculty that are not permanent anymore, that are adjunct type faculty coming on board, doing their work, leaving. It happens in Hollywood in a production studio environment. Steve Jobs did this at Apple. He did it at Pixar, where you bring talented teams together in production side, writing and scripting, and all the different capabilities within the production. They bring them together on a project, and then they extract them. And this is what you're beginning to see a lot in Silicon Valley. So a lot of the startups and so forth are not adding a lot of people, but as the situation changes, they bring the right types of people in to do the types of work they need. And that's a difference between the startup mentality versus a formal type of university environment where you may have tenured professors who have been there for a very long time teaching XYZ course, and that course is no longer needed, but they don't adapt to the new environment. This way you can bring people in from around the world to help teach in your university. It gives you a lot of credibility by doing that, and from that you can expand, and then you can bring on, you can have full-time faculty to do this, but the market is going to change rapidly enough that you may want to bring people in and out as quick as possible, depending on the demand of your customer. Okay? So that's what I'm saying, and that's what Hollywood does. So what they do is their value proposition is very precise. That's what you're trying to do. It can translate into dollars for the customer. How much money am I going to make? And for you is, what is the value that you're going to bring to business? What is the value that you're going to give to that student when they leave? They may not know that when they leave, but they're going to understand it as they go out into the business world. What you don't want to do is take a student who's coming in and says, I really want to learn why the sky is blue, and you have no course for that. And just because the demand right now is for a course on the sky is blue doesn't mean it's going to be relevant to their needs. You see what I'm saying? It's that relevancy that's going to be what's required out there. Your competitive differentiation, your vision of the future, whatever that is from the country, from the university, what you're trying to do, and how will that vision be driven to the operational level. So right now you have your strategic plan. Now we have to drive it to the operational level. That's what you're here for, both parts. And the actions and priorities that are required to make sure that you succeed, that you're different, and that you're going to win in this competitive race right now. And how do you manage and how are you going to monitor your success? What is the criteria in your plan for measuring success? So strategies of dealing with the market, how to position yourselves, and find that niche. That niche is going to be critical. You can't necessarily be everything for everybody, but you want to be into that, at least to start off with. And at least to start off with when you're getting your first partner. Okay? Each one of those has to be thought out carefully to be able to do that. What I've done with another company is I've looked at what HR people, as an example, are looking at. And what they're looking at, this happens to be from 2013, when they're looking for talent in the market. And high importance is over here, what they're looking for, and also some of the low important programs over here. I'm going to say, from my knowledge, this one, understanding global culture and business, is going to increase over here. But what you're seeing from an HR is forecasting future talent needs, leadership. Going back, how do you train your leaders? What is the leader of the future going to be? What skills does that leader know? All of those programs, how are you going to manage the capabilities to develop that? Employee performance, workforce planning, all these tools which are really planning, they're strategic types of courses that you need to be able to put together for your survival. It's just not the siloed traditional course, it's those integrations, it's the integration of different courses and different programs together. That's what they're saying. And so a lot of this is, again, it's HR and peer networking, but you're beginning to see that they're thinking about moving to what the business leaders are looking for. It's not saying that everything at a university should be geared to business. All I am saying is that's one aspect of it. What Steve Jobs told us is some of the other softer programs, the social sciences and others, make a difference because people should still be well-rounded in their curriculum. But it has to come together, and it has to be explained why it's important for the students to follow this type of roadmap, because they don't understand. And your job is to help them understand why these pieces of this puzzle are coming together and why it's of value to them. And if you can do that, you're much better than most of the universities in the United States right now. So, the strategy formation process. This is what you're here to do, and this is what we can start on afterwards. You've identified your university's mission and goals. You're defining the business. And you're defining your main objectives to the business. Stage 2 is your core competency and your value creation. And as you can see, it's analyzing the firm's unique abilities, primary activities, your support activities. Okay, and analyze the national and international business environment. The reason why I keep bringing up the international business environment is because you're competing with everybody in the world. And most companies, most institutions don't know how to do that. They're not thinking in those terms. They say, well, all Indians are this way and all Vietnamese are this way. It's not the case. They don't understand the idiosyncrasies of working with people around the world. And you need to know that because you're going to go after different customers in that way. Then the other part is to formulate, stage 3 is to formulate strategies and select a multinational or global strategy, your cooperative, who you're going to work with, your partnering strategy if you want to go after with university, and the business level, the fine-tuning the process that you're looking for, the programs that you're going to have, and so forth. And the department level strategies. What are you going to do in each department to make sure that this roadmap that you're putting together works for everybody? That's what you're trying to do. You're integrating the multidisciplinary aspects of the university together, but you're trying to make sure that all the departments are working together to help the benefit of the student, to help the benefit of companies, and also your country. Is that not what you're here to do? Yes? Yes? Shake it. You can shake your head yes to let me know. Okay? So this is your assignment now. Geez, I have an administrator. I can tell their assignment to. I'm just an instructor, and I stayed out of the administration side, so I have administrators now that I can tell them what kind of work they need to do over the next week. So your job over the next week is, number one, your fact-finding. You're going to ask a lot of questions. Companies want you to ask all kinds of questions. Find out as much as you can. In the evening when you get together over dinner, is talk about this. Does that make sense for us? Does it not make sense? Why did they say that? The key that I tell my students all the time is ask a couple of different questions. It's the same one you do in journalism school. Geez, here I am, a technology person, a business person, but I'm talking about journalism school. What do they ask in journalism school? When you're looking at a story, it's who, what, when, why, where, and how, right? Who? Who's doing this? Why are they really doing? What is the real meaning to what they're doing? Are they doing it to compete with somebody else? You know, it's like follow the money. If you want to find why somebody did something, follow the money. Who, what, when, why, and how they're doing it is key. So when you talk to Stanford, you talk to San Jose, ask, how are you doing this? Why are you doing it? Is it only for a certain type of audience, that your student body or audience or company? Why are you doing that? Because it may not apply to you. And then you're going to gather all this information, and now you're going to start churning it, because you're each from different disciplines in the organization, right? You're all from the different faculty positions and administrative positions at the university. Now you want to bring this together, okay? And you're going to you look at it, but look at it in terms, who's the finance person here? Look at it in terms of return on investment or return on equity. What's going to get you the most value? What's going to give you the most leverage in the market, okay, in the shortest term? Because you're competing right now with so many other universities, you want to leapfrog the others that are trying to figure this out, okay? And the nice thing that you have that a lot of the other universities and colleges around the world don't have is that you're very young in your process. You have the flexibility, like a startup company, to make modifications right now. You don't have a lot of the what we call here, a lot of the company baggage that goes along with it. You know, the history, the departments that you have, and all the traditional things. You're very flexible in what you're doing. And that's your unique position to do that. And whoever you want to work with around the world is probably going to be open to that. But I would suggest that if you want to use a good model, and I know that Marina has given you a bunch of companies to look at as models, I would look at Mr. Li Kai-sheng. And the reason why I'm saying to look at Li Kai-sheng's model is, number one, he didn't make his billions of dollars, you know, doing nothing. He's wealthy, okay? He believes in what he is doing. This is how he made his money. This is how he's helping China. This is how he helped Hong Kong. He lives in Hong Kong, but he wants to help mainland China to progress. This is what he's doing. This is what his model is looking like, who he's working with, what is his strategy that he's looking at versus a traditional U.S. or British like Oxford or MIT or whatever. Look to the newer ones, especially his. It's a good example, okay? And then the other one I would look at, seriously, is the Technion in Haifa, Israel. Because if more startups are coming out of that university than any university in the entire world, what are they doing different, okay? And all you have to say is if we can do what they're doing and what they're doing in China and a few other places around the world, then we're a step ahead of a lot of others. Now your competition, it begins to shrink, and your value proposition increases because the young people want to start their own companies. They all want to be innovative. They all want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to go necessarily into traditional businesses. Okay? They want to think differently. They want to act. They want to make money. They want to help their communities. They want to help their countries. This is what they tell me. Okay? Every student I had from around the world are telling me that same thing. And if you can help them do that, it's a win for you. That's my presentation over here. So, we're going to start working on your business plan, but you might have questions. A lot of questions. A lot to think about, right? I'm going to give them. Sure, email's fine. You still have time with me. Yeah. Why don't you take a few minutes, think about what we were talking about? I have business cards here from me, and also from the work I do around the world with my former students at my research institute. So my card is here, my address is here. I'll give you both. And a lot of what I'm talking about right now, and I didn't bring extra copies and stuff, but my textbook, which is a very inexpensive textbook right now. My first book was this one. It was used at Berkeley. It's used at San Jose State University. It's used at Seoul, Turkey. I'm trying to think of all the places around the world that it's used at. It goes into how to enter these markets. That's the difference. And my next one is coming out. What I talked to you about today is the result of the students I've been working with, these executives, and that's the title of, that's the work I've been doing, and this is their stories of what they're seeing and the problems that they're facing when they go home. And most of them I've had in the past, I've had Rhodes Scholars, I've had attorneys, I had PhDs, I've had a lot of different students who are trying to figure this out and take it home. So that's kind of the next work I'm working on. That's why this is relevant. Okay. And we do joint partnerships with universities, by the way, on the institute. So we do a lot of. Right. And I've offered Marina, if you want me, I can come back next week. I don't know your schedule, but if you have time next week, because you're going to have a lot, I assume you're going to have a lot of questions. Okay. And you're going to test my theories out with the companies that you're going to work with. Okay. And the people you're going to meet at the educational institutions, you're going to test this out. So what I offered her, if you feel it's valuable, let me know. I can come back for an hour or so and we can work on the plan together. And I'm assuming you're all working on the same plan. Okay. just say to those other components, when you're looking at strategy and you're looking at development, 80% of what I talked about applies across all the different areas. What's going to be unique is the 20% that's going to apply specifically to one area, okay? But in general, most of this is going to apply, if you look at it from an educational standpoint, it'll apply to education and the way education's going. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this is what, for the last 4 years, I've been working with executives from 40 different countries, from different levels, from Rhodes Scholars to professors to vice president of Toyota and others. And they're looking at their education that they have in their own country and how it's done generally, and also business. So they vary from, they're not all business, they're all business people now, but their backgrounds weren't all business. And they were looking how all of it came together. And one of the most important areas that they looked at was Steve Jobs when he looked at design, art, graphics, all this area, and he said, how does this apply to high tech, to information technology? And there's a gentleman that works with Stanford that does a lot of this, not just with companies, but different institutions, to make you creatively think how to do things differently and to understand the issues. Okay? Because the same thing that applies to designing a brochure or designing a new product, okay, from the marketing aspects to a course design that we found out, how to attract students to a university, all come together. It's a blending, what we're seeing now, of all these different disciplines that universities have a hard time and others are having a hard time dealing with, because traditionally it hasn't worked. Traditionally it's worked, but it's no longer working because the dynamic is so unique. I'll leave it to you. You're a good interpreter. Thank you. Right. Sure. Oh.
How it works in any American university?
Okay. His question is, who makes the decision? How are the decisions made about the material that we've had over here? In business, it could be done in multiple ways. It could be the CEO and the executives that do it. Within a university, it could be administrators. The unfortunate part is that you're going to have to overcome is everything has been so siloed that your job is to break through those silos and to convince people why this is important to them, okay? Because the traditional models aren't working. You're going to go to Google next. You're going to talk to their HR department. They run a company totally different than anybody else, and they're successful at doing it. Ask them why and how they get around and who makes the decisions. And then the next company you're going to is, I forgot the next company, some of the newer who's making those decisions? Your job, the difficult job that you have, and this is what I have found, is if you come from a more of an autocratic structure, okay, and I don't want to call your country autocratic, but you've been under the former Soviet Union and so forth, it's very rigid, okay? Asian companies are very rigid. Remember I talked about the leadership styles are different? They're very rigid, and it's awfully hard to make changes in a structure that's that rigid. But what's happening is executives need to know the problems that they're facing. If you can convince your people on board that these are the problems that are coming up, and what people people are demanding in businesses, and you're going to be able to go back and show them because you've heard from the Googles and others. Now they can either take that information or say that's not right. If they say it's not right, they're going to lose. But now the question is how do you sell the process? How do you sell the changes you're going to make? And you're going to do it in incremental ways. You're not going to make a massive change. When you do your plan, you're going to make gradual changes over the next so many times. Think about Microsoft. When Microsoft puts a new release out, they don't make a massive change all of a sudden. They make gradual changes to the product, right? And that's how most companies do it. Or Apple makes the new, but they bring in new functions, but it's the same. It has the same brand, and it has the same look and feel and to it. Think of it as that kind of product.
My question is something another way.
Okay.
I just want to know how does it work exactly? What in, for example, in Berkeley, how does it work? Is accepting process developing a strategy? First step is example discussion with teachers. Second step is maybe with high council.
So the question is, when they meet with people here in the universities, who should they talk to get to the
Maybe
decision makers?
outside some consulting.
Who is the decision-making group in the university?
At the university,
Who will
Yeah,
decide?
with university.
at the university, it'll be the final decision will be made by people like you at these different universities, the provost or the chancellor, that level. But the dynamic is coming about because sometimes they're so involved with the administrative part, they don't always see it. It's like a company. They don't see the new technology. You have to show them what's happening. So the nice thing that you're going to do is they're going to show you what's happening. They're going to tell you their problems. They may not know how to solve all their problems, but they are looking at them. The better universities are looking at the Coursera's, the online courses, the new textbooks, how they're going to train differently, what the demands of the students are. They'll know. If they're really good at what they do, they'll know. Okay? Matter of fact, if you look at one of the universities that Maria gave you, I don't have it in front of me. I think it was Virginia. Did she give you Virginia? The University of Virginia? Which I can't remember which one it was. If you look into their strategic plan, they break down some of the needs of each of the students. The question becomes is, they didn't have a program of how to respond to those needs, and were those needs of value to the community? So as an example, if I wanted to create a course, if I'm a student and I came to you and said, I think we should have a course in painting the sky blue, and you're going to say, there's no real value to that, okay? But if I were to come to you and say, I just came back from Silicon Valley, and I just saw what Stanford and Berkeley and these companies are doing, and they have incubators and innovator centers that are bringing all the disciplines together, and they're further along than we are. How do we do it? That's a convincing model because you see the results. There are results from this, right? Tangible, measurable results. Once you have the tangible, measurable results, nobody can argue with you. Right? Yes?
So we have a goal. The goal is that we want to become one of the leading universities. In our country, we're not going to become
Right.
world leading university. We are a young university. We have students that are geared to leadership.
Okay.
40%, 40% of their students that enter school graduate high school with
find out, you determine what is the highest value and the most leverage of what you're offering and concentrate initially on that. Let me give you an example. The students that you have, and this is just my guess because of the education that they have had, the Russian-style education and so forth, are very good at math and very good at science. Correct? And in engineering. Okay. So the advantage you have right now are those three areas. Because what we have found here in the United States is that America is not producing engineers. The engineers that are coming here are coming from China to learn, India to learn, and other places where they've had the discipline. Okay? What you don't have, that we have, is the ability to create and think about different products and to take that engineering and scientific knowledge and make it into businesses and to create businesses and ideas and to take those out. That's the strength that you can offer, that you...
So we probably should also teach them the business skills.
Yeah, absolutely, business, but it's not just business. It's the creative skills. How people buy. Yeah, that's where you're different. That's unique about what you offer. Now, let me go back for 1 minute. Even though if you went to the University of Moscow, you would have got the engineering and so forth, because it was very too structured, you didn't have that freedom to create. You've got to teach them how to create, to think, to start businesses for themselves, high-tech businesses. The entrepreneurship to do this and to use the models that you're going to see here. If you can do that, you're actually doing what the Chinese are doing and others. Now, how do you do that is the question.
It's all about details, yeah.
It's about the details. So now I've given you part of the solution to your problem, part of it. It's to be able to look at all the pieces that all of you represent and say, what is needed in the world? Okay? And it's not just the technology part, because they need to know how customers do things, how people buy, why they buy, the art side of it, the movie side, what makes people come in, the packaging, the dynamics of looking at the world and saying, which cultures do I want to work with? It's all of that coming together. By the way, you're not unique. This is the same problem that a lot of people are facing. But the nice thing that you have, the advantage, the science, the discipline, the mathematics, everything that, unfortunately, America is using from around the world, now you can bring to your students, and they can take it out to the world.
The second limitation that we experience, and I have to discourage you in what you said about our flexibility. We don't have that flexibility that you mentioned. We are very rigidly structured.
Okay, so so you now know what the problem. You know what the problem is. You know the problem. What's the solution to the problem? What's the solution to the problem? You're no different than You're no different than the Japanese, the Koreans, any of them. They're all structured.
Сингапурский технологический университет говорит, что работает. Yeah, well, that's what they say. Singapore. They also have, on the one hand, quite a quite rigid structure. On the other hand, they are reporting by the results,
Right.
the achievements. And with us, they just hold us by the neck, and we can't move.
Перед поездкой сюда мы встречались, вот наше руководство встречалось с министром страны, с министром образования.
Before coming here, we met with the Minister of Education of Kazakhstan.
Right.
Все проблемы, многие проблемы, сдерживающие развитие нашего университета, были министру обозначены.
And we described to him all the problems that prevent us from becoming more powerful entity.
Okay.
Но мы не надеемся, что министерство поможет нам их решить.
But we don't have any hope that the ministry will help us with these problems.
He probably won't.
Скорее всего, вам не поможет.
So,
Но,
То есть,
so should we just wither and die?
no. See, you're stuck in this mentality.
Вы вот застряли в этом
Okay.
отношении.
There's a saying in the valley here.
А у нас здесь в долине говорят так.
It's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
Лучше извиниться, чем просить разрешения.
And as Nike and some of the other companies would say here, just do it. You want it to make it happen? You're the ones who can make it happen. Start off slow and change and change and set your plan that you're going to do this and this and this. And by the time you're done, you've all set into a new way of doing it.
Когда вы выполните план, вы уже будете в совершенно другом состоянии, в новом состоянии. At least we are in a good situation because we can openly discuss our problems.
Right. That's good.
So I hope that eventually it will bring us to some leapfrog because there will be some changes. Because the society requires them. Professional needs are there.
Right.
Business requirements. Everywhere you read in the higher education blogs, we are all discussing the same
Right.
problems. So two-thirds of the human capital is created by the educational system, so any civilized country requires to introduce changes in the educational system.
Right. And you're the one.
Это
And you're the one to do it.
Вы должны это сделать. That's why we're here.
That's right. So what you do is here's how to start.
What's your
You set up on the outside of your normal coursework
за пределами ваших
an
стандартов
innovation
создаете школу
center.
инноваций, центр инноваций.
Okay? An innovation center where students who are interested in innovating and creating products can come together.
Создают новые продукты, заинтересованы в создании новых продуктов, новых идей, там собираются.
Right? And you bring the faculty who is interested in
Вы
doing that
привлекаете преподавателей,
together.
которые это хотят делать. Они там вместе работают. Oh, they already do that.
Okay?
We also invite professors from all over the world.
Okay? So you started. So now you
Мы уже начали это делать. Yes, we did.
so,
We're doing it.
so you're doing it. So now you keep creating this. It's going to be a little harder,
Создавать это, конечно, дело трудно.
but it's no different than working in a large, old, established company here to make change. But it takes one person to say, look, I just came back from California, and this is what they're doing here. And then you enroll your president, and you guys are the executives. It's up to you to convince them, to sell it, to sell your ideas. And your, and your plan will sell your ideas because you'll have your thoughts together, what needs to be done. You'll have your process of the steps to go to market, selling, and now you're in business. Since you're educators, you don't know how to. You don't necessarily know how to sell into these people. The whole game is not. Remember that one slide? It said it's not what you sell; it's how you sell it. It's how you sell your ideas. That's what it means. How you sell your ideas. So if the government wants facts and numbers and everything, you give them facts and numbers, and this is why you're making the decision. And you give them the option. If you go this way, you have this option. We're going to go this way and test it. And we're going to test it. We're going to set up a lab, and we're going to test it. And if it's valuable, then we roll it out. We test the lab.
So it's that simple.
It sounds simple. Let me tell you, if it was these 95% of the companies that fail would not be failing. Everybody goes through the same process, whether it's education, a business, a nonprofit organization. They all go through the same. That's why the thing that's harder now than it was 20 years ago is the competition from Singapore worldwide, because now you're facing that global competition, and it's hard. And by the way, as you're seeing, the CEOs of these companies don't know. I gave you the statistic, 11%. They don't know what to do. And they're college graduates, and they're still sitting there going, what do we do? And it's not that I have all the answers. The interesting thing is it's a process. And the process can adapt and change, but you have to implement the process. And it's you guys who do this. I mean, I could come over and hit your president on the head, and he'd probably arrest me, but
Well, actually, at our website there is the English language version of our.
I know, I've been there. I've been there. I did my homework. See, I did my research. Did you do your research to what Maria? She did your research?
We also did our.
Except the Russian, the translation of the Russian, that was a little difficult.
То, что было по-русски, это трудно было перевести.
Pardon me?
But did you?
No, the PDF is only in Russian.
There are files for Belarus. If you scroll down, there is other language.
Oh, it didn't say that. I'm going, and no, I didn't go far enough then. I'm going,
Значит, я не слишком далеко прокрутился.
you got to tell me that. I should have got
a chance to see what was there in English. What's your
I
opinion
would-
of their plan?
I will. By the time we talk next time, I will go through your plan.
Следующему разу я уже скажу вам,
I didn't know it was English down there. Just go.
So
I'm wasting time trying to get it translated.
if you can spend 15 minutes on looking at it and then giving them your opinion,
Sure, I'll do that.
like critique.
Yep.
С удовольствием. They'll email you the specific questions there.
Yeah, you mail me your specific questions. If you want to get together, we can answer them, and I'll be more than happy to do that, and I'll review your website.
Then you'll understand our ambitions, our plans. Teach another предмет. Something to discuss. You mentioned that MIT offers their courses online for free. What's the point?
Good point.
Хороший вопрос, Федор.
Think about it from a customer standpoint. If I give you something, yeah, if I give you something and you look at it and you go, wow, I didn't think about it, but these guys are offering me this, I may want to go to MIT because they're giving me the opportunity. Okay? I can't get a grade, and I can't take the test,
Смотреть, я не могу, правда, получить оценку, не могу засчитать это как пройденный курс.
but you get an ability to sample the teaching.
Понять уровень,
Okay?
оценить.
Look at it this way. You never knew about me before you came here. Now you've heard me.
Вы раньше
Okay?
не знали, что я существую, сейчас меня услышали.
You can either like me or
Может,
not,
вам понравился мой?
but on the other hand, he's good or he's not good. You see the professor there, and if I'm saying a lot of these professors are going to become rock stars, and they're really good at bringing students in and grabbing them,
Студентов будет учиться в университет из-за профессора, который слушает бесплатные лекции.
it's a big difference.
Вот в чем разница. Well, we think that it's very important to have face-to-face contact. That's why we don't have distance learning in our university.
Okay?
We have access to databases and knowledge bases
here's what I want you to think about. Give the customer, however, you can see Google, give the customer what they want. Some of it's going to be maybe online, and maybe because of some of them can't get there, a lecture to via Skype or do it different ways. Test them, or have your courses partly online, partly in class. Get them to the campus, but mix it up. Give them different ways of testing. But I'll tell you, if you want to get, let's say you have a curriculum that's in rocket science, and you do it in English, okay? How many people do you think will sign up? A lot would do that, because if you're the expert in that, and let me give you an example. There's a Nobel Prize chemist out of the Technion. They did this. What they did is they put the course in Arabic. The Technion is in Israel, right? They, through the IP address, could tell where the students were coming on to learn. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all of these, mostly from Arab countries, learning from the Technion in Israel. And the guy's going, we never thought of that. But it was all done in Arabic. And the students, no matter where they are, we're picking up this from this Nobel Prize winning. Does it mean they're going to come to the Technion in Israel? Probably not. But it may get other people interested in that subject matter to come to and demand it from their university. That's a way of it. It's all marketing. Oh, you got to go. You got to go. You're right. You're going to Google.
Yeah, we're going to Google
And the bus is here. Okay. You got it.
have to keep going.
Thank you.